I just want to ask you, so we're going to talk about your exhibit right now at the AGA, and it's a phenomenally uplifting exhibit. What inspired I Made This Place for You?
The hope behind I Made This Place for You is sort of, I've in the past, since 2020 really, I've been thinking a lot about ways that we can try to survive moments of intense anxiety and grief. And, I think 2020 is like a good sort of marker because there was a pretty poignant collective grief that we were all sort of experiencing around the pandemic and the beginning of the pandemic. And for me personally, it's sort of like, and for everybody, I think there were already a lot of compounding things like happening personally in our lives, politically. You think about the news and how it just feels like oftentimes it's like one thing and then another thing and then another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the summer of 2020, I found myself being like just very depleted and having a really hard time, making art seem quite futile and unnecessary when there was just so much going on. And then I started to really think about what the purpose of my work was. I started gardening actually. So I was outside gardening. I stopped making art for a while. And then when I came back to the studio, it sort of shifted things for me where I started thinking about, okay, well, is it possible for the studio and the things that I do in the studio and also for the work that I make in the studio to function like a garden that can sort of hold people in moments of grief or pain or anxiety or fear. And so that was sort of the genesis of the body of work that's in the exhibition at the AGA. It's all these sort of moments of really trying to make a space that is a potential sanctuary space.
And during this time, obviously 2020 was kind of a pivotal time for the world generally. And there's been a lot of tension, of course, since that time. Mm-hmm. And you said art wasn't providing solace for you. You weren't finding it in your gut to actually produce something. Do you ever think about because you have a whole history in education in art, did you ever think about jumping ship and, becoming a healthcare practitioner or something else?
No, I mean, I didn't. Like, I thought about stopping. I didn't know where I would go. I think, like my sister actually was an ER nurse at the time and in Hamilton General. And,
okay.
Even that, like, maybe it's because I had a sister that was a nurse. I was like, nope, I'm not going into healthcare. But I guess it was just this overwhelming sense of like futility. Like, it seemed like nothing I did, nothing any of us did could stop the tide, could stem the tide.
And physically working with your hands helped you. You said actually being out there planting a garden and actually being in a garden space. In this exhibition, I Made This Place for You. Is that the idea to kind of bring the space or the solace of being in nature to people, to visitors of the gallery, for example?
Exactly. That really is the hope. And that's like the sort of impetus behind the title. I like to think about it as, if you have any friends that are gardeners, the sort of excitement they have when they say, hey, come have a tea in my garden.
Right.
And it's a place that they've worked on for a while. And, when they get to share it with you, it becomes this act of like, collective care. And so, the impetus behind the show was to think like, I've been working in the studio and thinking about us as we sort of live in these times. And, I made this place for you. I made this place for you to come to and be held by.
So do you think people walking out of the exhibit, how do you think they would feel?
I think a reason behind or a sort of motivation behind the work is also maybe to talk less, like I feel like, in this day, there are a lot of opinions and a lot of people telling you what to think and how to feel and what to do and when to do it. And so I think in some ways that's why I make art, because I don't have words. And I think sometimes we don't have words. And so I hope that it's a space that can offer some respite. I think that's my hope.
Mm-hmm.
I think the painters out there might have some technical questions, and that's okay. That's good.
Yeah.
I was spending some time alone in the exhibition just before I left, and there was a tour group of about, I would say about 15 5 to 7 year olds, and they sort of came into the gallery, and then all of a sudden a few of them go, "Wow, it's so big." And I think that would be an appropriate feeling to come away with.
Well, for a guy who doesn't profess any real affection for words, you come across very articulate. Thanks for the time, Emmanuel. And mostly, thank you for sharing your creative output with us at the AGA. It's a wonderful exhibit, and it's a very welcoming exhibit. We encourage people to go out and catch it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tony. I'm glad we got a chance to talk.